Professor Sermon, thank you so much for being a part of the platform for us. Thank you for being my guest. And my first question to you is, what is your academic interest? You're listed on the Brighton University website as a professor for visual communications. So what does that involve?
Well, I'm a professor in the School of Art at the University of Brighton. I'm also a practicing artist. I work in the area of telecommunication arts and video. I teach across a number of areas and supervise students and PhDs and teach undergraduate students in the area of visual communication, which is mainly illustration and graphics actually. But my background is in fine art. I've been working in the area of digital media arts and telecommunication arts, what I call telematic arts, since the late 1980s. So I've been doing this work for over 30 years.
And I understand that throughout the pandemics, there were some changes to what you do, and you discovered new things, or you did new projects. So how did the pandemic and the lockdown affected what you do?
Well, it hasn't so much affected what I do, but it has allowed me to readdress how I work. So I've been working with video conference and video platforms, as I say, since the early 1990s. I did just to sort of give you the idea, the sort of the past of what I've done. I worked as early as 1992. I produced one of the first telepresent video installations where I used video conferencing systems in Finland, and I linked up two beds, one in Helsinki and one in Kajaani in the north of Finland, and I literally took an image of a performer, myself, lying on a bed in one city and projected it life-size in another city, and then had a camera that picked up the image and sent it back to me, which meant that people who were in the gallery could approach the bed and touch my life-size image on the bed, and I could respond to them. So I could respond in a very immediate sense, and there was a real sort of sense of cause and effect of sharing the same space. And since then, I've done other installations and used a number of different technologies involving green screening and video mapping to try and create this situation that two remote people are actually coexistent in a shared space, what we call a third space, the notion of the virtual. So I've been playing around with the ideas of telepresence and virtual spaces in video environments, on online spaces, using technologies like Skype and other kinds of video conference technologies as well, for many, many years, in order to explore the sense of the sense of self, of where the self exists in the sense of this space and the virtual space, and the kind of phenomenological connection between myself as a performer and myself as the digital reflection in the digital space. So that's been since the 90s. So it's not exactly a new experience for me, having to deal with lockdown and dealing with video. And in fact, when the pandemic began back in March, I put out a message on my Facebook feed, and I simply said, be creative with your video conferencing, make it memorable. It makes a difference. To try and break that barrier, that's sort of that assumption that there's only one way to use video conferencing. So I've been using this technology that we're meeting on all the time, whether it's Zoom, Skype, Teams, or whatever you want to call it. I've been using it for a long time, but not using it as the way it's defined here in this space, which is for a kind of head and shoulders newsreader situation in a little box, and you're in a box, and I'm in a box, and everyone else is in a box. And that's really not what this technology really should be doing. And it's certainly not how the performing arts and other art forms, it's not fit for purpose. So we're not used to being newsreaders. Why should we be? But we're put into this situation of we're all now in little boxes. And I simply put out a message to say, I've been working with this technology for a long time. It doesn't need to be this way. You need to rethink it, be creative about how you address and use this technology.
I really relate to that message. I wish more people listen to it, really. And I can see how creating the third space and bringing people, using technology, bringing people together in this situation is particularly important and innovative. Your telepresence space, can you tell us a little bit more about that project, because you received a substantial grant for it, I understand.
Yeah, so currently now, after having done a number of projects over the summer, since March with a number of different partners, we've been awarded a research grant from the Arts and Humanities Research Council to develop a lot of these techniques over the next 18 months, to think about how performing arts companies and how we can help them use these technologies differently. So we're using a lot of different platforms to composite these images together, to bring us into one screen, to bring us into a co-located space, that we no longer exist in separate boxes, but actually we exist in the same window, the same stage, if you like. You know, we're actually sharing, and through a process of composition of different elements and other kinds of scenography with environments and backgrounds and foregrounds and layers and sound layers and all different sort of video overlays and backgrounds and foregrounds. We're bringing these performers together into a shared space where they can choreograph and create and connect with each other within one window, a larger one, but a stage in that sense. This is a stage. And I think what's crucial to this is that we're not, you know, the whole situation here with the video conferencing and these technologies, they're built and made that on a concept that's been around for many years, and it's flawed. It's flawed in that it assumes that we have to make a technology that emulates our real life situation. So the notion that you look at me and I look at you, that's what we do in real life. So therefore you'll present me with your video image and I'll present you with my video image. But of course we know that doesn't really work, because we're not having the subtleties of the interactions that we might have in terms of how our body language works, our views, our looks, the position of our eyes. All these things are really uncomfortable compromises about how we communicate. So what we're talking about in this installation and this project is about this other space, not two spaces, not your space and my space, but the third space where we both coexist. And that's rather like a mirror. You know, if you look into a mirror, you see another, that is a third space. It's a third space you coexist in, but you don't have a kind of existential crisis when you look in a mirror. You don't say, oh my God, am I brushing my hair or your hair? You know, it's not as though you accepted the fact that this is you in this this reflected other. And that's at the core of phenomenology. That's where our true understanding of our existence lies, in that understanding that this, I am present here. I am present in this space. So we're simply bringing these people together to coexist and be present together, to be present in a shared space, a co-located third space. And we've been working with that concept for a number of years. So I'm working with my partners, Randall Packer, based at Third Space Network in Washington, DC, and Steve Dixon, who is the director at LaSalle College of Arts in Singapore, who's a professor of digital performance. And Randall is also worked in the area of networked video arts for many years. We're working with Sita Poppet-Taylor, a former professor at Leeds University in performance and technology. So between us, we're coming together to create we've all known each other for many years, but we're bringing this experience of working in this field together to try and present some new solutions to the performing arts, across from dance to cabaret, to comedy, to youth theatre, all sorts of areas and genres of performing arts. We're trying to offer new solutions to the ways that they might collaborate. and might actually to perform really a real sense of coexistence and have empathy for each other in that space.
One of the things I specifically like about what you're telling us is that you work with traditional artists, you work with dancers, you work with theater, and you really encourage people to think about the digital space as a third space, as something different, not to replicate our everyday activities. And that's what we have been trying to encourage the artists through AltPitch Festival as well. So it's a very resonating message. How do you assess or predict the opportunities for the arts post-pandemic? How do you think the arts, for probably looking for a more detailed description, but the arts in general, how can the artist adapt to the new reality using technology? What would be your prediction about that?
Well, I think the thing that I would like to stress about that is I think that all these things we're using, these technologies, they're not a compromise. I don't see this as a compromise. I don't see anything we're doing as a compromise, or I don't see it as the alternative. We must do this instead. In long term, I think we will learn from this to know what we can do as well as, you know, so we can say, well, we can still go to the theatre, but we could still do this, and we can actually do it this way as well. There are a number of ways we can experience performance, arts, collaboration, be that online and offline. And I think you know, it would be wrong to assume that we're saying, when the pandemic is over and when lockdown is over, we can all go back to the theatre and we don't need to do this again. That would be a very foolish mistake, I think, because I think what we have here and what we've been doing for many years is not just about trying to find a compromise or an alternative. They're about finding new ways to experience performance, to experience self, to experience a coexistence and collaboration in remote, in telepresent, in virtual spaces, and to understand how the body, how our body can extend through technologies to coexist and share. So it's not about the technology just being a quick solution. It's about pushing the technology in new directions, because the worst thing would be to come out of this and think we've learned nothing about working with these technologies and we'll just carry on working in the way we have with Zoom. But if we've learned to readdress this and actually revisit how we communicate online, that'll be a good thing, because that won't go away. That won't go away. Why should it go away? Why you know, I think people are very fed up with lockdown, and I think a lot of I teach a lot of young students, and I think it's really hard for 20-year-olds, you know, to go through that part of their lives where it really is about, you know, your social interactions are really important to you when you're that age, and I think it's very hard for them, for my students. But I have to keep reminding them, whatever we do here is not a compromise; it's an innovation. And you know, there'll come a day when we can be online and do our online things, and go to the pub in the evening and meet some friends in the pub, and we'll feel fine. You can't blame everything on this.
It really warms my heart to hear you speaking like this, because one of the things that I advocate including through that festival is that technology is not the purpose, technology is just a tool. And in order to keep our humanity, we have to see it as such, and we have to see it as an opportunity to expand and to investigate our humanity further. And I'm really connecting to what you're saying about that. So thank you ever so much for being part of this event, and I hope we will hear much more about your project in a very near future.
Yeah, sure.
Good. Thank you. And I'll speak to you soon.